Also, part of the trick with this is you have to squeeze the eyedropper down into the fluid to kind of prime the pump. I'm going to get a little more water here. And you can't pump real hard, because if you pump too hard, you lose your load of fluid you're pumping back and forth. Part of the problem I've found is that somehow that tight flow area, just this pumping in and out, it's like it gets trapped outside of this central chamber. So, you know, even if it's a 1 or 2 cc's that's not flowing right back in as you're pumping, it makes it hard to keep it in sealed, or keep it sealed with the surface of your chemicals. That was part of the reason that one of the benefits of adding those flow grooves around the outside. Just really going at it. Oh, nope, nothing. All right. We'll get this dumped out and get on to the... All right. Got our tank, got our helix, got our water. Dump that in. So the next idea I came up with was, I got myself, over here we have a Japanese dollar store called Daiso. And of all things, in the perfume section, they have these, and they have squeeze bulb syringes and 5cc syringes for filling tiny bottles. I use them for various things around here, and I thought, well, you know what? I could probably use this to go down into that, the side of that chamber. So it's running about right there, right on the side of this hump. But it's definitely, I mean, it might even be going down farther than that. Definitely submerged, and it's a little bit of a smaller orifice, but it's got a better seal here, so you're not going to get any air in it. You're just going to be pumping solid fluid. And let's get our drops of color in here. Get our syringe, and here we go. And I don't suck this real far. I was only doing about 5 cc's usually, but there it is. One pump, and you've already got a wisp of color coming through. And there it is, another one. I'm only doing about 5 cc's because I didn't want the fluid to run down too low and drop below the level of that, where the cassette is. And that would be kind of counteracting what we're trying to do here, which is keep those first few images supplied with fresh chemicals. So something that happens with this is, again, that flow. Every time this thing's pumping, it is almost overflowing this chamber here, and it doesn't freely flow back in. So if you were to actually pump this thing faster than I'm about doing here, you would be pumping this thing dry. It's so bizarre how tight the fit is on this thing. And right now I'm going to have to slow down and let it flow back a bit. Maybe I could just pull in a little more. Control how much I put out. But as you can see, that chamber is red, and even still every pump is puffing up a new wisp of chemicals. All right, and there we are. Let's get this dumped. So that was a 20 cc syringe with, it came with this needle. It's about a millimeter diameter. I don't know what gauge that is, but pretty big. Bigger the better, I would say. Since you're trying to get a lot of motion without a lot of drag. Okay. So that, I don't remember why I did this. I think I wanted to have a more all-around pump kind of action rather than just the tip of this needle shooting a jet in and out. So I went again to the hardware store and got a rubber stopper that fits in the top there. And then I drilled a hole all the way through it that was snug on this needle. And then I cut the end of the needle off so it didn't stick out too far. And then it gets assembled like that. So essentially what I've created is an air pump where when this is drawn out, it's going to suck the air, or create a vacuum if you want to be fancy, inside of this area, and it's going to lift up that entire inner volume and drop it down evenly and at the same time. And hopefully it'll perform like it did when I did it the first time, and as soon as I did it, I went, oh, that's the way to go. All right, we got our 70 cc's. And our 1, 2, 3 drops. All right, we get our pump attached. And here we go. I'm going to do the same thing, about 5 cc's at a time. And there it goes. It's already, it's puffing out from the sides rather than just one little jet at the center. It's also easier to pump. There are 2 distinct bursts coming out from the sides right here. Probably where there happen to be some cutouts that I made there. But it's just a much more active action. And then the pumping is also, I'm only doing about 5 cc's, so it doesn't drop down below the film area. But it doesn't seem to have the overflow problem. Maybe because it draws the volume out more quickly, or when you draw it in, you're actually physically pulling it back down. So you're not quite depending on the gravity flow back into the center chamber. All I know is this is what I did on that last roll of film I did, and it worked out really well. It's also an easier setup in a hot water bath, because you're not trying to wrestle a needle into a hole and hold this down. I made a wire bail that sits on the side of my pot and hooks under this, and then I could just pump away without having it slide around or have to worry about the needle, because it's all held in with nowhere to go. Also, the syringe is basically kept clean because it's only pumping air. You're not getting photochemicals in it. You don't have to worry about cross-contaminating or anything, or having to carefully clean it afterwards. You should rinse it out with distilled water anyways, but and I'm not seeing any more wisps, so I'm figuring this stuff is pretty much thoroughly mixed at this point. But I'm going to keep going for the whole duration. And this would probably work okay even without the cuts on the sides. I just didn't have that opportunity. So if you have an original tank and you want to try it out without the cuts in the sides, go for it. I'm curious to know if I could have saved myself an evening. Let me dump this out. But there you have it. That's all the ideas I could come up with to get these things mixed up, or to stir around in loaded with film in the dark in a hot water bath for doing color. If you've got any other ideas, I'd like to hear about them. If there's something you could do that would be a better test than what I was doing, go right ahead. I'm not completely attached to what I've come up with. I'm just a cheapskate trying to come up with better solutions. All right, good luck.